4% interest rate. So this is R, and T equals 1 year. It grows to, so the total, so this is the total. Total is 1612. How much was originally invested? In other words, what is the principal? So remember the formula. So the interest is P, R, and T. We do not know the principal. We know that the time is given to us as 1 year, and we know that the annual interest rate is 0.4. So the question I have here is the following. I just want to delete this. So it grew to 1612. To me, this means principal plus interest. How does this seem to you when it says it grew to? Let's read the problem one more time. An investment is made at 4% interest for 1 year. It grows to this. How much was originally invested? In other words, what is the principal? So the interest, which is the I, uppercase I, this is what we add to the original amount. So on 900, the total interest is 111.60. So after 4 years at this interest rate, the $900 grew to 900 plus 111.60. In other words, now the total is 1,011.60. This is just the interest. So now here, how do you understand the grew to? Anyone? What's your take on this? Anybody? Is anybody with me? Okay, so what do you think? What do you think? Anybody? How do you interpret this?
First, you need to find interest, like you said. So take the total divided by the interest rate, and then add them together to get the total, to get the principal. Well, that's how you get the principal, or the interest, and then you minus that from the principal.
So 1612 is basically the principal, which I don't have, right? Plus the principal, which I don't have, times 0.04.
Right.
So then 1612 equals $1 plus 0.04, which is 1.04, times P. Very good. So now we have to divide 1612 divided by 1.04. I totally agree. So let's divide. Good. And 1612 divided by 1.04. And that is 1550. So they invested 1,550 at 4% per year for 1 year. Good. Excellent. Let's see if there is anything else. Okay. Good. I think we can move on to problems. Okay, I want to work on this problem too. So let's read it. A town's employment statistics show that 1,003 of its residents were unemployed last month. Unemployed, 1,003. This is a decrease of 15% from the previous month of original. How many residents were unemployed in the previous month? So we know that X were the unemployed last month. But this month, the total unemployed were 1,003. But they are telling us that this is a decrease of 15% of what happened last month, the unemployed from last month. And this is now 1,003. Let's read the problem one more time to make sure we understand the steps. So show that 1,003 of its residents were unemployed last month. This is a decrease of 15% from the previous month. So whatever it was last month, the previous month, now 15% of that is a decrease. This is a decrease of 15% from the previous month. Of the 15% of the total unemployed from the previous month. How many residents were unemployed in the previous month? Good. Again, this is an easy issue because I have like $1 minus 0.15, which is 0.85x equals 1,003. And now I can find x dividing 1,003 by 0.85. So let's see. 1,003 divided by 0.85. So 1180. So x equals 1,180. They were previous month. This month there were 1,003, and that is a 15% decrease from the total unemployed the previous month. Any questions on any of these problems from the Learn? You have everything now to help you finish up this section. And now let's see what we find in practice. Gee whiz, 42 problems. Okay, so let's take a look and see what else we can work on. Okay, let's see if we find anything new. I want you to have all different types so you don't have any issues when you work on this problem, on these problems. She collects records. Last year she had 15 records in her collection. Now she has 24. What is the percent increase? Is that a yes? Is that a no? Okay. Moving on then. The population of a small farming community decreased from this to this. Find the percent decrease. Is this a yes?
No, but thank you.
Good. A National Public Transportation Association announced that a certain regional transit company posted the nation's largest yearly increase in the bus ridership among big city agents. Okay, there were 1.4 million more trips in the company's buses in this year than in the previous year. So there were 1.4 more. The increase brought ridership of 18.8 million, the highest in more than a decade. Complete parts A through C below. According to this report, how many bus trips were there in the previous year? Okay, so the increase, so the total right now is 18.8 million. So the increase was 1.4. So we have to subtract from 18.8, we have to subtract 1.4. And this is what was the number of trips for the previous year, because it says there were 1.4 million trips more this year than the previous year. And that made a total of 18.8. So to determine what was prior, all we have to do is subtract from the total we have today, we subtract 1.4. So what is that? 17.4? Yes? No?
Yes.
Perfect. What was the percent increase between the 2 years? So remember, this is the original. The increase is 1.4. So we have to divide 1.4 by the original. So 1.4 divided by 17.4. 1.4 divided by 17.4. That is the percent increase. At the top is the change, either increase or decrease. At the bottom is the original amount. And that gives us 8%. Now we have to read the fine print. Round to the nearest whole number as needed. So 8%. So I will enter 8% because the percent sign is here, and I enter 8. And I think there is another part to it. If the trend continues, how many bus trips would there be for this company's next year? So the increase is 8% of the original. But this time, today, this is an interesting problem. This time, today, this year, there are 18.8 and there's million. And they're saying, okay, let's assume that this year the increase stays at 8%. So to the 18.8 million, we have to add a 8% increase of it. 18.8 multiplied by 8%, but I cannot write 8%. I have to write 0.08. So to the original, which is this year, of 18.8 trips, I have to add an increase of this amount of 0.08 or 8%. And this is what we anticipate to have next year. The number of trips for next year. In order to obtain that, we have 18.8 multiplied by 1 plus 0.08. 1.08. And this is what we expect next year, assuming that the increase is still is still at 8%. Now we have to read the fine print. We got 20.304, 20,304,000, but we have to see what they want. Round to the nearest tenth as needed. The nearest 10 as needed is simply 20.3. That's it, because the next digit is 0. So I will enter 20.3. And that is it. Any questions on this problem? Okay, this was an interesting one. You're going to get the same problem with just different numbers. By decreasing each dimension by 1 foot, the area of the rectangle decreased from 60 square feet to 45 square feet. Find the percent decrease in the area. We know how to do this. It's the difference divided by the original. Same thing here. A rectangular garden has dimensions of 17 by 10. The homeowner wants to increase each dimension by 30%. Let's do this one. So the rectangular garden is 17 by 10. And this is in feet. Okay? He wants to increase each dimension by 30%. 30% doesn't mean anything. It's 30% of the original. In other words, the length will be 17 plus 17 times 0.3. And the width will be 10 plus 10 times 0.3. Okay, so let's multiply. And we have 17 times 1.3. It's the same thing. So 22.1. And then 10 times 1.3. I combine like terms, so to speak. So this is 13. Okay, fine. So what do they want now? Find the original perimeter of the garden. Okay, the original. The original perimeter is 2 times 17 plus 2 times 10. That's the original perimeter. 2 times the length plus 2 times the width. So this is 34 plus 20, which is 54 feet. That's the original perimeter. Any questions? So we have 54. Of course, it's feet, not square feet. It's dimension we're adding, not multiplying. Find the original area. Okay, fine. The original area is length times width, which is 17 times 10, which is 170. But this must be square feet because it's area. So this is 170. And we select, and we have to select the square feet. Find the perimeter of the garden with a 30% increase in each dimension. Okay, fine. So the perimeter will be twice 22.1 plus twice 13. So this is 44.2 plus 26. And I think we get 70.2. And of course, this is feet. Am I correct? 70.2 feet with the increase. So type an integer or a decimal. Okay, 70.2. And of course, we are talking the perimeter, so it has to be feet. And then find the area of the garden with a 30% increase in each dimension. Okay, the same thing. So this time the area will be 22.1 times 13. And this has to be in square feet. 22.1 times 13. And that is 287.3. And that's what we enter. 287.3. And of course you have to select square feet because it's the area. Good. Any questions on this problem?